I'm Alex, 17 now, and I'm not just any regular teenager. My story is a bit, well, let's just say different from most. It all starts with my mom, who died when I was 7. That was tough, of course, but little did I know back then she left me something big. Like, really big. But we'll get into that soon. Now, my dad remarried when I was about 9, to Rachel, who came with her daughter Madison. Rachel's alright, I guess, but she's definitely the type who tries too hard to act like she's everyone's best friend. And Madison, she's like a year younger than me, and let's just say we don't exactly click. Not that she's done anything majorly wrong, it's just she's always had that I deserve it all vibe. Oh, and I have a half-brother, Jake, who's 5 now. He's cool, just a little kid, so no drama there. Yet, but let's rewind to last year when I found out about the money. See, my grandparents, who are my mom's parents, sat me down for a serious talk. I thought it was going to be about college, or maybe some boring life advice or whatever, but nope, they dropped the biggest bomb on me. Turns out I'm going to inherit between $500,000 to $1 million when I turn 18. Yeah, you read that right. My grandparents were super successful business people. They ran this business for years, made a ton of money, and sold it. Instead of keeping any for themselves, they put it all into this trust fund for me. Now, don't get me wrong, I wasn't jumping up and down when they told me. I mean, my mom died, and money is not exactly something that can replace that. But still, the idea of having that kind of cash was pretty wild to think about. Like, one minute you're just a regular teenager with part-time job dreams, and the next you're going to be set for life. Kind of a lot to process. My mom had this whole plan set up before she passed. She wanted to make sure that if anything happened to her, I'd be taken care of. She didn't want my dad, or worse, his new wife and kids getting their hands on it. My grandparents kept adding to the fund after she was gone, and they've been managing it ever since. Smart, right? They even made sure that my dad had no clue about how much was actually in the account. Fast forward to last year, and my grandparents figured it was time I knew the truth. They wanted me to be prepared, not just hit 18 and suddenly have all this money with no clue what to do with it. They explained that my mom set this up to secure my future, and only mine. Not for Madison, not for Jake, and certainly not for Rachel, just me. At first, I didn't really think much about telling my dad. I figured he already knew it was a decent amount, and would be cool with it. Big mistake. One night, while we were just sitting around, I casually mentioned that I'd be getting a good chunk of money when I turned 18. My dad's face went from chill to complete shock, like the color drained out of his face, and his jaw just kind of hung there. I guess he didn't expect me to be sitting on a gold mine. He started asking all these questions like, how much? Where's it from? Who's in charge of it? All that stuff. And I didn't want to lie or anything, so I told him. Well, next thing I know, he's talking to Rachel about it, and things went south fast. I mean, they sat me down like we were having some kind of intervention. They start talking about family and sharing the wealth, and how Madison has big dreams of going to law school but won't be able to afford it unless she gets some help. And by help, they meant my money. Not only that, but they also brought up Jake. Like, oh, he's only 5 now, but what about when he needs to go to college? It would be so great if you could help set him up for his future. I sat there in disbelief. I mean, are you kidding me? This money was saved by my mom and my grandparents, and they expect me to just hand it over because they can't figure out how to pay for their own kids' stuff? I told them straight up, this money is mine. My mom and my grandparents made sure it's for me, not for Madison or Jake. And that's when Rachel flipped. She went on this whole rant about how I'm being selfish, and how it's not fair to keep that kind of money all to myself when I have 2 siblings who could really use it to better their lives. My dad was nodding along like she was making the most logical argument in the world, and I just couldn't believe it. They were acting like I owed them something. Rachel kept pushing, saying things like, how could you even think of blowing all that money on yourself when you could change someone else's life? Don't you care about your family? But let me tell you, it was never about family for them. It was all about getting their hands on the cash. I stood my ground, though. I told them that I wasn't going to share it, and if they were upset about that, then so be it. They both looked at me like I just slapped them in the face. My dad tried to reason with me, saying things like, I'm not asking you to give all of it, just a portion. Think about how much this could help us out. But again, us? No. This money isn't our money, it's mine. After that, the mood in the house changed. My dad and Rachel didn't talk to me much for a while. They kept their distance, but I could tell they were stewing over it. I overheard Rachel talking to Madison one night, telling her not to worry, that they'd figure something out. I couldn't help but feel like they were planning something behind my back. The thing is, I'm not stupid. I know they're just biding their time, waiting for me to crack, or maybe hoping they can guilt-trip me into giving them something. But they don't understand that my mom set this up for a reason. She knew this might happen, and that's why she made sure the money stayed locked down until I'm 18. And honestly, I'm not backing down. This is about more than just money. It's about my mom's legacy, what she wanted for me, and not letting anyone take that away. Not Rachel, not Madison, not even my dad. They can try all they want, but they're not getting a penny. Alright, so after the whole money blew up, things at home got even weirder. I don't know if you've ever been in a situation where you can feel people talking about you behind your back, but it was like that. My dad and Rachel were acting super off, and Madison wasn't helping either. Like every time I walked into the room, it would go dead silent. They'd just stare at me like I was some kind of villain for not handing over my inheritance. It was awkward as hell. Anyway, one day, Rachel decided to take things up a notch. She pulled me aside in the kitchen and tried to have this heart-to-heart conversation. I was just trying to make a sandwich, and she comes at me with, "Alex, I think you're making a mistake. You're young, and you don't understand the value of family yet. When you get older, you'll see that helping out your siblings is more important than any amount of money." I just looked at her and said, "They're not my siblings. Madison isn't even blood-related, and Jake's my half-brother. This money has nothing to do with them." She looked shocked, like I just insulted her entire existence. But come on, was I supposed to just roll over and agree with her guilt trip? Rachel wasn't done, though. She tried to go on about how family isn't just about blood, and how I should show compassion. But I wasn't buying any of it. It was the same old routine. Make me feel bad, get me to agree to give them money, and everyone's happy. Except me, of course. Things hit a real turning point about a week later. My dad and I had this huge blow-up argument, and honestly, I didn't see it coming. He had been pretty quiet after the initial conversation, so I thought maybe he'd let it go. I was wrong. One night he comes home from work, and I can already tell something's up. He's all tense and doesn't even bother with the usual, "How was your day?" small talk. Instead, he just says, "We need to talk," in that serious dad voice that makes you feel like you're about to get grounded or something. So we sit down in the living room and he starts off slow, like he's trying to be reasonable. He's like, "Alex, I know you're young and you might not fully understand what you're doing with this money. I'm not saying you have to give all of it away, but Madison really needs help for college. And Jake, well, he's got a future ahead of him too. You could do something great for them." I could feel the anger boiling up inside me, but I kept my cool mostly. I told him, "Dad, this isn't my responsibility. You and Rachel need to figure out how to pay for Madison's college and Jake's future. That's on you, not me." And then he snapped, like full-on snapped. He started yelling, which is something my dad never does. He said, "I've done everything for you. I've raised you, put a roof over your head, fed you, clothed you, and this is how you repay me? By being selfish?" I tried to stay calm, but it was hard. I mean, come on, he was basically saying that I owed him my inheritance because he did the bare minimum of being a parent. I told him, "This money is from Mom and my grandparents. They set it up for me. You don't get to tell me what to do with it." That's when he said the thing that really messed with my head. He goes, "Your mom wouldn't have wanted you to turn your back on your family like this. She would have wanted you to share." That hit hard, but I knew it wasn't true. My mom set up that money specifically so I wouldn't have to deal with this kind of pressure. She knew something like this could happen, and she didn't want my dad or anyone else taking advantage of it. So I said, if Mom wanted me to share, she would have set it up that way, but she didn't. She left it for me. After that argument, my dad didn't talk to me for days. Rachel wasn't talking to me either, but that wasn't anything new. The house felt like one big cold shoulder. I would come home from school, and they'd be in the living room or kitchen, but they wouldn't say a word to me. If I tried to talk to them, they'd just give me one-word answers or ignore me completely. Madison, on the other hand, took a different approach. She wasn't quiet at all. In fact, she got kind of bold about the whole thing. One day, I overheard her talking to Rachel in her room, and she was like, "I don't get why he won't just give me the money. It's not like he's going to use all of it. He could at least help me out with tuition." It was almost funny how entitled she sounded, like it was just a given that she should get some of my inheritance. I wanted to bust in and say, "Hey, newsflash, it's not your money." But I didn't. I just let it go because arguing with her wouldn't get me anywhere. A few days later, things got even crazier. Rachel decided to bring in a lawyer. Yeah, you heard that right, a lawyer. She claimed that she just wanted to explore all the options and make sure everything was being handled fairly. I knew right away that this was her way of trying to intimidate me into giving up some of the money. The lawyer came over to the house, and Rachel made a big show of it, like it was some important meeting. My dad was there too, but he stayed quiet, letting Rachel do most of the talking. She kept saying things like, "We just want to make sure Alex understands the legal side of things, and we're concerned about how this money is being distributed." The lawyer, though, didn't seem all that interested. He basically told them that there wasn't much they could do because the money was in a trust set up by my mom and grandparents. It was airtight. and the only way to change anything would be if I decided to do it. Rachel looked pissed. I could tell she was hoping for a different answer, but the lawyer shut her down pretty quick. After that, Rachel stopped pretending to be nice. She stopped talking to me altogether. She wouldn't even look at me when I walked into the room. It was like I didn't exist anymore. And honestly, I didn't care. If she was going to be like that, I was fine with it. The less I had to deal with her, the better. At this point, I knew things weren't going to get better. My 18th birthday was just a few months away, and I could feel the tension building up. It was like everyone was waiting for that moment when the money would officially be mine, hoping I'd change my mind. But I wasn't going to. There was no way I was giving in. I started spending more time at my grandparents' place, just to get away from the craziness at home. They were really supportive, and my grandpa even joked about putting a restraining order on my dad and Rachel if they kept this nonsense up. It felt good to know they had my back, no matter what. But deep down, I knew that once I turned 18, things were going to get a lot worse. Alright, so now we're getting close to my 18th birthday, and let me tell you, things were going from bad to worse. If I thought my dad and Rachel were being weird before, they took it to a whole new level. As the big day got closer, it was like they were just waiting for me to slip up or magically change my mind about the money. Spoiler, I wasn't going to. It started with my dad trying to get all friendly again. Like after weeks of giving me the cold shoulder, he suddenly acted like everything was fine. One morning, he's sitting at the kitchen table, sipping coffee, and he goes, "Hey Alex, I was thinking we should go fishing this weekend, just the two of us, like old times." Now, fishing was something we used to do back when I was younger, but it's been years since we actually did anything like that. So it was a pretty random offer, especially since he hadn't exactly been chatty with me recently. I just said, maybe. I've got a lot going on with school. I wasn't going to just fall for the whole let's be buddies again thing after everything he pulled. He didn't push it, but I could tell he was disappointed. Honestly, it felt like he was trying to butter me up so I'd be more open to giving away some of my inheritance, but I wasn't stupid. I knew what this was really about. While my dad was trying the whole nice guy routine, Rachel was up to something else entirely. One day, I came home from school, and she's in the living room with a bunch of paperwork spread out on the coffee table. I didn't think much of it at first. She's always got her nose in some paperwork. But then I saw one of the papers had my name on it. I asked her, "What's all this?" And she looked up with this fake smile, like she was trying so hard to be friendly. "Oh, just going over some legal stuff," she said casually. "We want to make sure everything's in order for when you turn 18. Now, I knew Rachel worked in finance or something like that, but this was different. It wasn't just regular paperwork. It was about me and my money. I didn't say anything at the moment, but I made a mental note to keep an eye on her. Something about it didn't sit right with me. A few days later, everything came to a head. My dad sat me down again, this time with Rachel right there, and they hit me with it. "Alex," my dad started, "we've been thinking, and we really believe that once you have access to the money, you should consider helping out Madison with her college costs." I knew this was coming, but it still pissed me off. I just looked at him and said, "Dad, we've been over this. That money isn't for her, it's for me. Mom and my grandparents set it up specifically for me, and I'm not giving it away." Rachel, of course, jumped in with her guilt trip tactics. "But Alex, you're going to have so much money, more than you'll ever need. Madison's worked so hard, and she deserves a chance at a good future. You could help make that happen for her." I had to bite my tongue. It wasn't that I didn't care about Madison wanting to go to college or whatever, but this was my future we were talking about, and honestly, it wasn't my job to pay for her life. "I get that," I said, trying to stay calm, "but it's not my responsibility. If you and Dad want to help her, then you should figure that out. But I'm not giving away my inheritance." That's when Rachel got really mad. She stood up and started pacing around the room, throwing her hands in the air like she couldn't believe what I was saying. "This is ridiculous," she yelled. "You're sitting on a fortune and you're just going to hoard it all for yourself? What kind of person does that?" I didn't even have a chance to respond before my dad jumped in too. "She's right, Alex. You need to think about your family. We've all made sacrifices for you, and this is how you repay us." That was it. I'd had enough. I stood up and said, "Sacrifices? What sacrifices? I've been living in this house, going to school, doing my own thing. I haven't asked you for anything. And now, because I'm finally getting something for myself, you think I owe it to you?" They were both stunned. I could see it in their faces. They didn't expect me to push back so hard. But I was done being pushed around. A few days after that fight, I got a call from my mom's lawyer. He told me that my dad had been in touch with him, asking about the details of the trust fund. Apparently, he wanted to see if there was any way to challenge the way it was set up. When I heard that, I felt my blood boil. My dad wasn't just trying to guilt me into giving up the money. He was actually trying to find a way to force me to do it. I called my grandpa right away and told him everything. He wasn't happy, to say the least. "Don't worry, Alex," he said. "We've got everything locked down tight. Your dad can't touch a penny of that money, and neither can Rachel." That made me feel a little better, but I still couldn't believe my dad would go that far. It wasn't even about the money at this point, it was about the principle. This was supposed to be for my future, something my mom wanted for me. And here was my dad trying to take that away just because he and Rachel couldn't get their finances together. Things got even crazier as my birthday got closer. Rachel started being even colder toward me, barely acknowledging my existence whenever I was around. Madison, too. It was like I wasn't part of the family anymore. Every conversation was short and awkward, like they were just waiting for me to turn 18 so they could make one last push for the money. But the final straw came about a week before my birthday. My dad came to me again, this time without Rachel. He looked tired, like he hadn't been sleeping, and I could tell he was about to make some kind of big ask. "Alex," he said, "I know things have been tense around here, and I just want to clear the air. I've been thinking a lot about this money situation, and I get that it's yours, or I really do. But before you make any final decisions, I just want to ask one last thing." I already knew what was coming, but I let him continue. "Madison's future depends on this, Alex. If you could just spare a little bit, enough to cover her first year of college, it would mean the world to her, to all of us." I couldn't believe it. After everything, he was still trying to get me to crack. But this time, I didn't even hesitate. "No," I said. "No, Dad, I'm not doing it. You and Rachel need to figure this out on your own. I'm not responsible for Madison's college or Jake's future or anything else. This money is for me, and I'm not giving it away." He didn't say anything for a while. He just sat there staring at the floor, like he didn't know what to do next. Finally, he nodded and said, "Okay, I get it." And that was it. He walked out of the room, and for the first time in a long time, I felt like I could breathe again. I knew the worst was still to come, but at least I'd stood my ground. Update 1, so here we are. My 18th birthday was just around the corner, and it felt like I was counting down the days to some big showdown. Every day at home got more uncomfortable. You know that feeling when you can't relax in your own space because everyone around you is walking on eggshells? Yeah, that was my life. Rachel, for one, had completely given up on even pretending to like me. She wouldn't talk to me unless she had to, and even then it was always cold and short. Madison, well, she'd been giving me these side-eye looks every time we crossed paths, like I was the bad guy in all of this for not just handing over the money. And my dad, he was still distant, but I could tell he was stressed out. I think deep down he knew he'd lost the battle, but that didn't make things any easier. The weird thing was, in the week leading up to my birthday, it was almost too quiet. My dad and Rachel weren't pushing the money issue as much anymore, and I started thinking maybe, just maybe, they'd accepted my decision. I should have known better. A few days before my birthday, I was out with some friends from school, trying to just live my life and not think about the mess at home. When I got back, the house was completely empty, which was weird because Rachel was usually home with Jake. I figured maybe they went out for the day or something, so I didn't think much of it. But then I saw a letter on the kitchen table with my name on it. Now, I'm not one for drama, but my stomach dropped as soon as I saw that envelope. I knew something was up. I opened it, and inside was a note from my dad. It wasn't long, but it hit hard. "Alex, I know we haven't been seeing eye to eye lately, but I want you to know that everything I've done has been for the family. I hope you'll reconsider your decision before it's too late. Rachel and I have discussed things, and if you're not willing to contribute to helping out your siblings, then maybe it's time you think about where you really want to live. Love, Dad." I was fuming. Basically, he was telling me that if I didn't give up some of the money, I wasn't welcome in the house anymore. I couldn't believe it. After everything, he was still using guilt to try and manipulate me into giving up my inheritance. That night, I decided I wasn't going to just sit back and let this happen. I waited until everyone was home, Dad, Rachel, Madison, and even little Jake. We were all sitting in the living room, and the tension was thick. No one was really talking, but I could feel that everyone knew what was coming. I looked at my dad and just said, "So I found your letter." He didn't look surprised. He just nodded, like he knew this conversation was coming. Rachel, on the other hand, gave me this smug look, like she thought they'd finally broken me down. "So, what's the deal, Dad? You're really going to kick me out if I don't give up some of my money?" He sighed, rubbing his temples like he was the one having the tough time. "Alex, it's not about kicking you out. It's about being part of this family. You have to understand that this money could help all of us." I wasn't having it. "Help all of us, or help you and Rachel not have to worry about Madison's college bills? Let's be real here. You're not doing this for me, you're doing this because you see my inheritance as a way out of your problems." Rachel jumped in, of course. "That's not true, Alex. We've always wanted what's best for you, but you have a chance to help your brother and sister. They're not my responsibility, I cut her off, louder than I meant to. I could see Jake flinch a little, which made me feel bad for raising my voice, but I couldn't back down now. This money was set aside for me. Mom made sure of that. You can't just act like I owe you because you've got 2 other kids to worry about. Madison finally spoke up, her voice full of attitude. You're being selfish, Alex. It's not like you'll even need all that money. Why can't you just help out? I turned to her, trying to keep calm but not really succeeding. You're not entitled to my money, Madison. None of you are. I don't care how hard you've worked or what dreams you have. This is my future, and I'm not letting you or anyone else take it from me. The room went silent. My dad looked like he was about to say something, but he just stared at the floor, shaking his head. Rachel, though, wasn't done. If you can't see how much you're hurting this family, then maybe your dad was right. Maybe it's time you find somewhere else to live. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. My own stepmom was basically telling me to get out because I wouldn't hand over money that wasn't even hers to begin with. I looked at my dad, hoping he'd step in, but he just sat there, not saying a word. That's when I realized this wasn't going to end well. They weren't going to stop, no matter how many times I said no. They were going to keep pushing until they got what they wanted, or until I was out of the picture. I stood up, not really knowing what to say next. My mind was racing, and I could feel my heart pounding in my chest. Part of me wanted to yell, to tell them all to screw off. But another part of me just felt tired. Tired of all the fighting, tired of the guilt trips, tired of feeling like I was the bad guy in my own home. I looked at my dad one last time. So, this is it? You're really going to throw me out because I won't give you the money? He didn't look up. He just muttered, I don't want to do this, Alex, but you're not leaving us much of a choice. That was it. I was done. Fine, I said, my voice shaking a little. I'll go. But don't expect me to come back. Without waiting for a response, I turned and walked out. I didn't even pack up my things right then. I just left. I called my grandparents on the way to their house, told them what happened, and they were beyond pissed. They told me I could stay with them as long as I needed, which was a huge relief. But as I walked away from the house, I couldn't help but feel this weird mix of anger and sadness. It hurt that my own dad would choose money over me, but at the same time, I knew I couldn't keep living like that. I had to look out for myself, even if it meant leaving my family behind. The next few days were kind of a blur. I moved most of my stuff to my grandparents' house, and they were super supportive, telling me over and over that I did the right thing. But it was still hard. Even though my dad had basically kicked me out, it didn't change the fact that I'd lost a big part of my life. It felt like a weird kind of betrayal, and I wasn't sure how to deal with it. But one thing was clear, I wasn't going to give up my future for them. I wasn't going to let their greed control me. And now, with my birthday just days away, it felt like everything was about to change. Update 2, so my 18th birthday finally rolled around. I gotta say, it didn't feel like I thought it would. I guess I'd always pictured it as this huge milestone, like I'd wake up and everything would be different, you know? But in reality, it just felt like another day, except now I had access to a ridiculous amount of money. I was staying with my grandparents by then, so I woke up in their guest room, and the first thing I saw was my grandpa sitting at the kitchen table with a huge grin on his face. He had the papers all ready for me to sign, giving me full control of the trust. My grandma was making breakfast, and it almost felt normal for a minute. Like, after everything that went down with my dad and Rachel, maybe things were finally looking up. But of course, nothing in my life is ever that simple. I barely had time to eat before my phone started buzzing. I checked the screen, and of course, it was my dad. I hadn't spoken to him since I left, and honestly, I wasn't sure I wanted to. But it was my birthday, and a small part of me wondered if maybe he was calling to make things right. Maybe he realized how screwed up everything had gotten, and he was ready to apologize. Spoiler, he wasn't. I answered the phone, and before I could even say hello, he jumped right in with, Alex, we need to talk. It's important. Great, not even a happy birthday first. I sighed and said, what's up, Dad? He didn't waste any time. Rachel and I have been thinking, and we really think you should reconsider your decision about the money. We understand that you feel like it's yours, but you have to understand that this affects the whole family. I couldn't believe it. Here we go again. Dad, we've been over this. I'm not giving you or Rachel any of the money. It's mine, and that's final. He didn't even acknowledge what I said. Instead, he just kept talking, like I hadn't said anything at all. Look, Alex, I know this is a big moment for you, but you need to be smart about it. You don't want to burn bridges with your family over money. I clenched my jaw, trying not to lose it. Dad, you kicked me out because I wouldn't give you the money. That wasn't me burning bridges, that was you. There was silence on the other end for a moment, and I could hear him breathing heavily, like he was trying to control himself. I didn't kick you out, you chose to leave. I almost laughed. You told me to figure out where I wanted to live if I wasn't going to share the money. What else was I supposed to do? He paused again, then finally said, Look, this doesn't have to be a big fight. We can work something out. Maybe just help Madison with her first year of college, and we can all move past this. I'd had enough. I couldn't take it anymore. Dad, I'm done. I'm done with all of this. You're not getting any money, and if you can't accept that, then we don't have anything else to talk about. Before he could say anything else, I hung up. My heart was pounding, and I felt like I was going to explode. This was supposed to be my day, but of course he had to ruin it by dragging me back into the same argument we've been having for months. After that call, I realized I couldn't keep living in this weird limbo where I was waiting for things to get better with my dad. It was clear that to him and Rachel, the money was more important than anything else. And if they couldn't see that, then there was no point in holding out hope that things would ever be normal again. I sat down with my grandparents and told them everything. They'd been really supportive throughout the whole mess, but I could tell they were worried about how things were going to play out now that I had control of the money. My grandpa, always the practical one, said, Alex, you're going to have to make some tough decisions. This isn't just about the money anymore. It's about your relationship with your dad. You need to decide if you're willing to cut ties or if you're going to try and work things out. I knew he was right. I'd been avoiding the real issue, hoping that once the money was officially mine, everything would just magically resolve itself. But that wasn't going to happen. So I made a decision. I wasn't going to give my dad or Rachel any money no matter what. But I also wasn't going to keep putting myself through the emotional ringer, waiting for them to come around. I needed to move on with my life, and if that meant cutting them out, then so be it. A few days after my birthday, I got another call. This time, from Madison. I almost didn't answer, but curiosity got the best of me. I hadn't heard from her directly since everything went down, and I was kind of wondering what she had to say. When I picked up, she was surprisingly calm. No attitude, no guilt trips. She just said, Hey Alex, can we talk? I was cautious, but said, Sure, what's up? She sighed. Look, I know things have been rough between us lately, and I get that you don't want to give me any money. I'm not here to argue with you about that. I just wanted to say that I'm sorry for how things turned out. I wasn't expecting that at all. Thanks, I guess. There was a pause, and then she said, I never wanted things to get this bad. I know I was being entitled, and that wasn't fair to you. I don't know. I guess I was desperate because college is expensive, and I thought maybe you'd help me out. But I get it now. It's your money, and you don't owe me anything. I didn't really know what to say. Part of me wanted to tell her off, but another part of me appreciated that she was at least acknowledging how screwed up things had gotten. Thanks for saying that, I finally said. But you're right, this whole situation sucks, and I wish it hadn't gone down this way. But it is what it is. Madison sighed again. Yeah, I know. Anyway, I just wanted to say that. I'm still pissed, but I guess I'll figure something out for college. We didn't talk much after that, but it felt like some kind of closure. It didn't fix anything, but at least she wasn't trying to guilt me into giving her money anymore. After that, things got a lot quieter. My dad stopped calling, and Rachel, well, I wasn't going to hear from her anytime soon. I stayed with my grandparents for a while, and they helped me set up a plan for how to manage the money responsibly. I didn't want to blow through it all or make dumb decisions, so I set up a meeting with a financial advisor and got everything sorted. It felt weird, though. I mean, I was 18, and I had more money than most people make in their entire lives. But it didn't feel like some huge victory. It felt like I'd lost something important in the process, my relationship with my dad. But at the same time, I knew I couldn't keep letting him and Rachel push me around. I started making plans for my future, college, maybe starting a business, who knows. For the first time in months, I felt like I was in control of my life, and it was a pretty damn good feeling. And as for my dad, I don't know if we'll ever fix things, but I do know one thing. I'm not letting anyone take away what my mom and grandparents worked so hard to give me. This is my life now, and I'm going to live it on my terms.